gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here.
Log in to KofiPaisaTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Harek Shun Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Harek Shun Calfunny, As I Learned, We All Learn by Kofi Paisa. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisaTV.com.
ETM Hotel Rennie Sean, welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in the Monster Warrior Clan YouTube channel. I got my brother Sutek Lumumba in the building with me. We're going to discuss and we're actually going to go over a claim that had been brought up in a discussion yesterday. But that wasn't the first time. But it was brought up yesterday on Garfield's channel by the Apologist, Adam. And, you know, we're going to break down that claim, and we're even going to take a step back to reevaluate what he had said once before. But before we get started, man, you know, show us some love, like the show, share the show, tell a friend, and you know, let's get this thing cracking. Mark, my bad, dog. He said, and just when I thought I was about to go to sleep, boom, late night, Sean.
Some late night, man. Peace to the chat. Make sure, again, man, y'all like the show. Make sure y'all share the show. Peace.
Yeah, so before we get started, man, you know, it's only right that we actually do this, since we're going to be critiquing something, that we do it the correct way. So Copyright Act, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Yeah, so before we get going, y'all, show us some love, like the show, share the show again. For the people who will catch it in the archives, please like the show and share the show. We're dealing with a serious claim of Christianity in West Africa. Was it in West Africa? There's a source that is floating around that has been utilized, and we just want to be able to make sure that everyone properly understands what's actually being said. And, you know, and we'll let you draw an honest conclusion based on the data. So, let's see what we got here. Before we fully get going, man, I'm gonna get into the video a little bit, and then I'm gonna give the floor to Brother Sutek. You let me know if you want to pause the video at any time and want to deal with something specific, and then we're going from there. All right, so everybody should be able to see the screen, right? Then we should be able to hear the video. So Get his brother a view. There's his name, Andre Colum, right here. He's known as the what they call themselves, some type of apologetics or whatever they say. But here we go.
On hero, the real Adam Coleman, and you write a true idea apologetics. And look, I done told y'all, man, the claim that Christianity is the white man's religion is straight trash. And the more we research the subject, the more evidence that we find that cuts that claim to shreds. Now, look, one of the most common claims among the Christianity is the white man's religion crowd is the notion that prior to the transatlantic slave trade, Africans had no dealings with Christianity. And it's not uncommon to see popular YouTube pseudo scholars and memeologists who believe that nonsense and post memes like this one here as they try to drive home the claim that it was through slavery that Africans were first exposed to and converted to Christianity. Now, people will try to raise this point in a number of different ways.
It's just weird to me because the same people that gave you Jesus gave you nigga.
And they didn't give me Jesus. Not if God created the earth. What? So you're saying to me all of God started at slavery with a white man?
No, that's exactly what I'm not saying. I'm saying that we had something we believed in before we were slaves and were taught this religion. We believed in something before that. Like that, the part of the world we lived in that didn't exist.
Forward. And that's why I said the most destructive thing that's ever taken place in the Black community has been the religions that's always introduced to us. And if you ask people the $1 million question, what were you doing before you were enslaved? What was you studying? And I don't
like we just saw, sometimes people will outright assert that Africans were not exposed to and or didn't rock with Christianity before slavery. Other times people will use a rhetorical question like, what did our ancestors believe before slavery? Or what did Africans practice before slavery in order to kind of make their point? Basically implying that given our ancestors supposedly didn't rock with Christianity before slavery, neither should we. Rather, we should believe, worship, practice, or subscribe to whatever our ancestors did or something along those lines. Now, in either case, the argument being made is that Christianity is something that is culturally or ethnically foreign to African peoples, and on that basis should be rejected. Basically, the notion is that some sort of ethnic betrayal of one's African ancestry or heritage, or like bowing the knee to white supremacy to be Black and Christian. Now, right here on this channel, we've demonstrated time and time again that Christianity in Africa goes back to like the 1st century and then centuries following that in places like Egypt, Tunisia, North Africa, Ethiopia, ancient Nubia, which is, modern day Sudan, and so on. But for some folks, that just ain't good enough. Their pushback would be something like, well, that's East Africa or North Africa, and our ancestors came from West Africa. So then we give them more facts. We show them the evidence of the Congo embracing Christianity on various levels in 1491. This occurred under the rule of King Afonso as the Congo came into contact and trade relationship with Portugal. But then folks still want to push back and to say, okay, well, there's your evidence of African enslaved persons exposed to Christianity before being slaves, but that came about due to their interactions with Europeans, the Portuguese, who obviously participated in the slave trade. So, that doesn't really count. All right, so I'm going to give y'all an important piece of the puzzle in terms of answering Brother Polite's $1 million question. Now, the fact of the matter is West Africans were not monolithic. They didn't all believe and practice the same thing. Now, of course, while bashing Christianity, folks will at the same time align themselves with various religions, spiritual systems, or ideologies that they believe to be in line with what our African ancestors practiced, whether it be Islam, Kemetic spirituality, various forms of African spirituality like Vodun and so on. And of course, the Hebrew Israelites would want to claim that you got some sort of old covenant worship of Yahweh, being practiced in West Africa before the transatlantic slave trade. But without fail, Christianity is always left out of that loop. However, I'm about to hit y'all with something my dude, Dr. Vince Bantu, just put us onto a couple weeks ago. So shout out to him for this one. What if I told you there was a community of African Christians in West Africa a century or more before the arrival of Europeans and the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade? Well, that was exactly the case. And we got receipts to back it up. All right, let me take you back to a West African kingdom called Mali. Mali was a landlocked West African nation just southwest of Algeria, just to put it in perspective of where we are on the map. And during the period of time we're interested in here, Mali was ruled by a famous African king named Mansa Musa. Now, Mansa Musa was a Muslim ruler and is probably most known for the fact that the man had mad money, like lots of money. It's speculated he may have been the richest king that ever lived. Now, in this book that I just happen to have right here, titled Corpus of Arabic Sources for West African History, edited by Levsian and Hopkins, On pages 250 and 251, we have a translation of a primary source describing what happened during a trip that Mansa Musa took to Egypt. This entry into the book is attributed to Ibn al-Dawardari and is dated to have been written in the early 1300s around 1335 CE. In a portion of his work, al-Dawardari documents a man that he describes as the inspector of the army named Al-Din, speaking on a conversation that he had with Mansa Musa. Al-Din reports of the conversation like this. He says, quote, "I asked the king of Takur, how is the description of the place where the gold grows with you?" And he replied, "It is not in that part of our land which belongs to the Muslims, but in the land of the Christians of the Takur. We dispatch collectors to take from them a species of the tribute due to us and obligatory upon them. These are special lands which put forth gold in this fashion." And it consists of varying sizes.
So I had to walk off for a minute, so I missed the Christianity in the Congo part. But immediately he's talking about, he mentioned Mali at first. And then he starts to quote Al whoever. I can't remember old boy's name. But
Al-Wadari.
Al-Wadari. And Al-Wadari mentions the Christians of Tukror. So he's saying Mali. The person that he's quoting is saying Tukror. And again, we have, if you look at the archaeology of Tukror, you will have a problem pinpointing where this is at specific time periods. Hold on, you can go in or you can keep playing it. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna get into where Tukror is at because we're gonna be specific, all right? And we're gonna deal with Tukror on a basic level, then a full level.
Some like little rings, some like carob seeds, and the like. And then further, it's recorded that Al-Din responded to Mansa Musa by asking, quote, "Why don't you take this land by conquest?" To which Mansa Musa replied, "If we conquer them and take it, it does not put forth anything. We have done this in many ways, but seeing nothing there. But when it returns to them, it puts forth as usual."
We got music, so.
End quote. Now, first of all, I think it's pretty funny, actually, when the Muslim king Mansa Musa attempted to take the land from the Christians to get the gold, they would come up empty-handed. But when it was returned to the Christians, gold was present. I mean, who knows what was going on in that situation, but one way or another, one could look at it like, yo, God was really looking out for that Christian community. By the way, if you haven't made yourself a part of our True ID community yet, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel. And also be sure to subscribe to my True ID gaming channel. That's where we mix in gaming with apologetics discussions and Q&A and all that, and we have a good time. But anyway, here's the point that I wanted to get at. Again, the source of this conversation between Al-Din and Mansa Musa is dated to have been written down in 1335 CE. The general understanding is that the transatlantic slave trade didn't begin until the early 1500s and maybe about mid to late 1400s, depending on how you want to interpret certain events, leading to the full-blown slave trade. But with that being the case, either way, what we have here is evidence of one of Africa's most famous kings, Mansa Musa, referring to a community of indigenous African Christians living in West Africa in the kingdom of Mali for well over a century before Europeans arrived on the west side of Africa and before the transatlantic slave trade popped off. So when people try to drive an ethnic or cultural wedge between Christianity and Africa by asking rhetorical questions like, what did Africans worship before slavery? Did Africans know anything about Jesus before slavery? If our African ancestors had no dealings with Jesus or Christianity, then why should we? Each of these questions is based upon the false assumption that Christianity was foreign to West Africa before white folks showed up. The reality is Christianity was one of the various religions or spiritual systems practiced by indigenous people in West Africa before slavery. Ooh. In other words, even before the transatlantic slave trade, Christianity was a part of the spiritual landscape of West Africa, if you will. That's just fire right there. So anyway, if you want to learn more about Christianity in Africa before the transatlantic slave trade, we've got plenty of content right here on this channel. As a matter of fact, you can click on the video beside me and check out our interview with Dr. Vince Bantu on early African Christianity.
All right. So that's where we are. That's where we are. So First, let's do this. Let's do this live, right? Because this takes some methodology, and we need to understand something. Hold on, I might be spelling it wrong. All right. Let's find out what Tokroy is. We need to be specific. So here's a map. I just want to pull an image up. So here's a map. There go Mali. There go Tokroy. Tokroy sits. See where it says Wolof and all of that. So we have to deal with that. So for anybody to know anything about Tokroy, right? It was an ancient state of West Africa, which first roughly paralleled to Ghana. That's from the Wiki article. It says Tokroy was the capital of a state which flourished on the lower Senegal River. Tokroy was a term like Balad al-Sudan that was used to refer to all people of West African ancestry. That comes from Ibn Khalid, a Muslim, and is still in use as such in the Middle East, with some corruption, as in Tukrani, which is plural for Tukarna in Saudi Arabia. The district of Bulaq al-Dakar in Cairo is named after an ascetic from West Africa. The formation of the state may have taken place as an influx from Fulani from the east settled in the Senegal Valley. So we're talking about Senegal somewhere, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that's the origins. Now, originally, the kings of Tokroy eventually adopted Islam sometime in 1030s during the reign of a king war, Jabi. Now, the court converted to Islam, the first regent to officially pronounce orthodoxy in the Sahel. I need to put this on the screen for y'all. So let me go back here, and let me just show y'all where I'm at with this. I'm right here. So these people adopted Islam around this time, 1030s. So they had some type of indigenous culture before the coming of Islam. See, Ghana Empire, the Fulani, Tokroy became an independent of Ghanaian power. It needs a citation. Tokroy set out in the conquer Kingdom of Darar, which was a Ghanaian province in 1203. Downfall, among these were the Susu. You got the Mandinka people. Mali Empire, 1235. Tokroy was in the steep decline. The state was conquered by the usurper, and it gives us that information. So we're there. You know, Tokroy was later conquered by Mali. It was also conquered by Jollof in the 15th century. However, Koli, Fula rebel, did finally manage to regain Tokroy in the name of Futatoro. See? In the 15th century. Now, the dynasty also did not last, and in 1776, during the Futa Revolution led by Muslim clerics, the kingdom was entered and the house of the Dinak was brought down. So I'm gonna put it back on the map. And I wanna go ahead and I wanna talk about the account that he gives. Now, his account can be found in the corpus of early Arabic sources of West African history. It is the only source that the brother used. Now, let me be clear. This video was viewed 44,000 times. In the description of the video, You know, they are sold on that because of Vince Bantu. Source used in this video was the corpus of early Arabic history, translated by this particular person, and goes here. Let's see what the source says while we're looking at this map. And we really need to deal with Massa. I really should pull up Massa's account. But anyway, so Ibn el-Dawadari is the source on page 249. Okay? But he's reading from page 250. And he doesn't give you the gist of the whole page. So I'm going to start from 249 and I'm going to go my way to 250. All right, so it says, listen to it. Abu Bakr B. Abad Allah B. Ayakba el-Dawadari was a member of a family which held official appointments in the service of the Mamluks. So let's get that straight. His family held official appointments in the service of the Mamluks. Everybody know who the Mamluks are? He is known as Ibn el-Dawadari or simply el-Dawadari because of his father served under a Mamluk emir who was a Dawadar, keeper of the inkwell. Now, he began to take notes on his 9-volume history of the Muslim dynasties in 1309 and wrote the work itself between 1331 and 1335. Each volume of the Kanz el-Dawar, Wa Jami el-Guwar, the treasure of the pearls and the assemblage of choice objects, is dedicated to a different dynasty in Muslim history. But the historical accounts become more detailed when the author approaches his own time. Hence, the ninth volume, from which this translation is taken, is dedicated entirely to the reign of the Mamluk Sultan al-Malik al-Nasir b. Kalun, who ruled over Egypt 3 times between 1294 and 1340. This volume is undoubtedly the most original and valuable part of Kanz el-Dawar, as the author had access to documents and informants. Indeed, he wrote this book only 7 or 10 years after the pilgrimage of Mansa Musa and his visit to Cairo. This account corroborates that of the al-Umari, who wrote a few years later. Both authors give the names of their informants, and the fact that they had independent sources of information adds to the value of their evidence. There is an autographed copy of the Kanz el-Dawar in Istanbul, which is the basis of the edition in the text. In the year of 1324, the king of Tuqrar arrived making the noble Hajj. His name was al-Bukhari b. Musa, and then it says Sikh, S-I-C. We're going to let Sutek deal with that in just a minute. He remained in Egypt for a year before betaking himself to the Hajj. He had much gold with him. He is the country which puts forth gold. I heard the Cadi, Fakhr el-Din, inspector of the victorious army, say, I asked the king of Tuqrar, how is the description of the place where the gold grows with you? He replied, it is not in a part of our land which belongs to the Muslims, but in the land which belongs to the Christians, Sikh, of the Tuqrar. We dispatch collectors to take from them a species of tribute due to us and the obligatory upon them. There are special lands which put forth gold in this fashion. It consists of small pieces of varying sizes, some like little rings, some like carob seeds, and like. The Cadi Fakhr el-Din continued, I said, why don't you take this land by conquest? He replied, if we conquer them and take it, it does not put forth anything. We have done this in many ways, but seen nothing there. But when it returns to them, it puts forth as usual. This is most amazing thing, and is perhaps due to an increase in the oppressiveness of Christians. Then the king of Tuqrar and his fellow followers brought all kinds of things from New and Old Cairo. They thought that their money was inexhaustible. when they became immense in buying and found that there was no limit in different commodities in this country, and they saw every day something better than the last. The money which they had with them gave out to them as they borrowed. Various people lent to them in the hope of big profits of return. But everything they had borrowed fell back on their heads and lenders, and they got nothing back. Among these was our friends of the Sheikh and Imam Shams el-Din Tazmart el-Maghribi. He lent them gold of a good form, but none of it came back. Then these people became amazed at the ampleness of the country and how their money had become used up without them having been able to complete the purchases they desired. So they began needing and resold what they had bought at half its value, and people made good profits off them. And God knows best. Our Lord was very generous towards them and invested the king with royal robe honor by his authority, while the caliph girded him with a sword by his authority. He undertook the ketubah in his country and should be in the name of the Lord of the Sultan and the coinage likewise. Such an undertaking was never given to the ruler of Egypt except our Lord, the Sultan al-Nasir. May his victories be mighty. So on page 250, after the claim, there's a citation for number 5. So when we go in the back of the book of the corpus and we go to page 250 and we deal with el-Dawadari's claim, it says, where the informant was the Sheikh el-Dakulu, he says that the land of gold belonged to the infidels, the kuffar. In the citation corrects it. It doesn't say the Christians. It says the land of the infidels, the kuffar. There are also reference to, listen to this, because we gotta say this so you got clarity. It says there are also references to Judaism in the interior. In the interior. Now I got to go to page 99 and 107 to get clarity on the interior. But this seems to be the first reference to Christians, Nasara, that's the name that they call the Christians, Nasara, which we don't see in the writing, which is odd. I'm going to say this again. He says, there are also references to Judaism in the interior. And then it sends me to page 97 and 108. It says, but this seems to be the first reference to Christians, Nasara, which is odd. So I'm going to 97 and 108. I'm in the same book. I ain't left the book. I'm still in the corpus. 97. 97 is Al-Zuwar. And he talks about the Habash. But when he talks about the Habash, he is referencing Egypt. So he's talking about these Habashas are the richest and best dressed people. He's talking about Egypt. And even in the example that is given here, I don't see the word Nasara or the word Christian or the word Jew. So let me go to 108. I'm going to go to 108. I'm dealing with Idrisi on 108. Now I'm dealing with Idrisi's account. When I'm dealing with Idrisi's account, Idrisi brings up south of Barisa at the distance of about 10 days is the land of Lamlam. The people of Barisi, Silla, and Ghana make forays in the land of Lamlam and capture its inhabitants. They bring them to their own countries and sell them to the visiting merchants. They later export them to other countries. In the whole of the land of Lamlam, there are only 2 small villages, village-like towns, are called Malil and the other Dar. Okay? Between these 2 towns is a distance of 4 days. And this is where he says the Jews come up. Their inhabitants, according to the reports of the people, are the people of that part of the world are Jews. But infidelity and ignorance overcame them. When among all the people of Lamlam, one reaches puberty, he is branded on his face and temples with fire. You can't be no Jew with burn marks on your face. Anyway, that is the first instance of Jew, not Christian, Okay? So you fighting Idrisi, we fighting Idrisi, which is Idrisi is writing in a different time period. Idrisi perhaps is the best known in Europe of all the Arab geographers. No doubt because an abridgment of his work was printed in Rome as early as 1592, thus being one of the first Arabic books ever printed. Idrisi was a descendant of the Banu Hamad dynasty, who had ruled Malaga till 1055 as an offshoot of the Idrisis of Morocco. So this is why they use these people. They're trying to insert themselves. So for the listening audience again, page 250 is what Adam read from. And more specifically, he says in a reply to this quote, "It is not in the part of our land which belongs to the Muslims, but in the land which belongs to the Christians, Sikh." Now, Sutek, you here? You just fell off. Okay. Sutek, then, that's Kofi in the chat. Quick recap up to now. Lam is Gideon's go-to, but yeah, he misuses Lam. All right, so again, we start with the video, right? The video introduces, he says, he talked about Christians being in West Africa, but what he's not specific on is time periods. Now, he did mention 1324, well, around the 1300s. He said that, but then he says, the source says that this was odd. This was odd. Why is it odd? Because El Daridari is the only Arab, ladies and gentlemen, I repeat, El Daridari is the only Muslim who makes the assertion that Christians was in the area. Now, earlier I had said something about Sikh. And we need to get back to Musa's account, but I think I dropped Musa's account in my book where he talking to the people in Cairo and referring to the people, but I don't quote me on this because my mind all over the place. But he's not mentioning someone to the northeast of him. He's mentioning the land being south. And he doesn't say Tukwar. He never gives Tukwar up. That's a misrepresentation of Mansa Musa. So what does Sikh mean? Sikh is Latin. All right. Now, it has something to do with an inserted quote, right? In a passage indicated that the quote matter has been transcribed or translated exactly as found in the source, completely with any erroneous, archaic, or otherwise non-standard spelling, punctuation, or grammar. It also applies to any surprising assertion, faulty reasoning, or other matter that might be interpreted as an error of transcription. The typical usage is to inform the reader that any errors or apparent errors in quoted material do not arise from errors in the course of the transcription, but are intentionally reproduced exactly as they appear in the source text. It is generally placed inside square brackets to indicate that this is not part of the quoted matter. Sikh may also be inserted derivatively and sarcastically to call attention to the original writer's spelling mistakes or erroneous logic, or to show general disapproval or dislike of the material. In modern use, the use of Sikh is greatly increased in the mid-20th century. For example, the United States State Court Opinions in 1944, Sikh appeared 1,239 times in the Westlaw database. In 1945 to 1990, it appeared 69,000 times. its use as a form of ridicule deserved otherwise has been cited as major factor in an increase. The immoderate use of Sikh has created some controversy, leading some editors, including biographical scholar Seminole Smith and literary critic Lynn Edel, to speak out against it. And the conventional use of Sikh in its bracket form is most often inserted in the quoted reprinted material to indicate meticulously accurate or in reproducing the preceding text despite appearances of the reader or the incorrect. I'm going to say that again. Despite appearances to the reader of an incorrect or unusual orthographic. Now, several usage guides recommend that a bracketed Sikh be used primarily as an aid to a reader, not as an indicator of disagreement with the source. Okay? So, oddly, the word Christians was mentioned. This was odd because the reason it's odd is because when we look at the works of Ibn, when we look at Batuti's work and we look at Khaldun, which you heard in the corpus, Dawadari and El-Umari, they speak in reference to the same thing. However, Al-Umari does not say Christians. He don't say nobody. He don't say Christian. He don't say Jew when he's referring to Mansa Musa. He even says this. He says, together with Khaldun Chronicle and Batuti Eyewitness Account, Umari's work is a major source for the history of Mali in the 14th century. He collected valuable information from Egyptian officials who had met Mansa Musa during his visit to Cairo in 1324. Al-Umari himself was in Syria at the time. He also interviewed other informants who had been residents in Mali for many years. In the 14th century, with the frequent visits to pilgrims from Tukwar, as the Western Sudan became known in Egypt, and growing commercial relations between Mali and Egypt, there were at least as many opportunities to obtain information about Mali and Egypt as in the Maghreb. Even Khaldun met two of his informants, the Sheikh Uthman and El Hajj Yunus, in Cairo. Al-Umari's detailed description of the court of Mali often suggests comparisons with regalia and ceremonies at the court of Mamluk sultans in Egypt. It is difficult to say whether these similarities are consequences or imitations of Malian kings and courtiers who had visited Cairo, or whether these similarities only reflect the biased perception of Al-Umari and his informants. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have Spears of the Mosque Volume 3, you will not understand what I wrote about regarding Mansa Musa. Okay? Why am I saying this? Is because if Musa is the source of the claim that Christians was in West Africa, what validity does he hold if his whole rule is fictitious? If you don't have volume 3, you're not going to understand what I mentioned in the chapter about the Malik Khoi Can Mansa Musa. There is some very questionable accounts. That is why I labeled the title of the chapter, The Questionable Accounts of Malik Khoi Can Musa. If he is the root, which it seems to be that he is not the root, that something is being misinterpreted because Al-Dawadari is the only source that we have. And even in the corpus and in the index, in the footnotes of the corpus, the footnotes is telling us that there is something wrong here with two claims by Dawadari. They're just not specific about those two claims. So we have Arabs telling us about that. Now, the brother also talked about, well, the brother said that Christianity was not foreign to West Africans. It was very foreign to West Africans. Why was it very foreign to West Africans? Because we have the accounts where missionaries came into West Africa. If Christianity was not foreign to West Africans, we would see them show up culturally, right? We would see them in festivals. We would already have some familiarity with Christianity, but there was no familiar grounds of Christian practices in West Africa. However, you did have some Moroccan Jews who would be outside of West Africa and in certain parts, but they wouldn't be down where they needed to be. So to come to a conclusion, Brother Adam and Vince Bantu, so-called doctor, to come to a conclusion based on one source is disingenuous. Where's your primary source? Is El Dari a primary source? A primary source are immediate firsthand accounts of a topic from people who had a direct connection with it. Primary sources can conclude texts or laws and other original documents, newspaper reports by reporters who witnessed an event or who quoted people who did, speeches, diaries, letters, and interviews, what the people involved said or wrote, original research, data set survey data, such as census of economic statistics, photos, videos, audios, and the capture of an event. Dawadara can't be your primary source if Dawadara is claiming to rely on El-Din, who is supposedly had a conversation with Mansa Musa. So it's hearsay because El-Din which is an informant, is saying this to Dawadari, which is Dawadari's informant. So Dawadari is not getting this. Is not dealing with a primary source. He's dealing with somebody who's saying something is saying something that somebody else says. So now it makes us want to go back to the accounts of Mansa Musa when he was in Cairo and he was giving his whole rap game. So when I looked in the Fatish and when I looked in the Tariq al-Sudan and the Tariq al-Fatish, when I looked at the two primary main sources used when they talk about the Mali court, when I looked at Gomez's work, when I looked at Hunwick's work, when I went back to substantiate all the evidence that I put in chapter 3, when I talked about this, because I put Dawadara in here. Dawadara name comes up on 255. And I'm finna do y'all one solid because I'm gonna give you where I got it. When Mansa Musa first arrived in Cairo and Rajib in 1324, he and his followers brought all kinds of things. They thought that their money was inexhaustible. By the time they left Mali, they had bought enough money to get back. So let's go. Let me go pull my source. Where you at? Gomez. There you go. All right. Let me go see if I pull another source. Because I mentioned, I even put it in my book. As far as the gold, he bragged about the location of it, the place where gold grows. It is not in the part of our land which belongs to the Muslims, but in the land which belongs to the Christians, in Asara of the Takur. No matter what a gold grew, it flowed directly to Malik Khor Musa. No matter what a gold grew, it flowed to the Malik Khor Musa. So let's go to see. Don't play no games, boy. All right, so the massive visits therefore requires nope, skip that talks about Khaldun saying something. In offering the figure of 60,000 person entourage as far as to why Tariq al-Sudan indicates they constituted as many as 4 times the number who arrived in Egypt, but as will be seen, 15,000 and too low a figure. From all indications, the vast majority of the royal retinue was enslaved. If 10 years are allowed for preparation, some 6,000 persons would have been captured per annum for this purpose. Probably many more in allowing attribution of absorption in the whole society. Skipping. On the basis of testimony from Old Cairo's governor Abu el-Hassan el-B Amir Hajjab el-Umari's records, Mansa Musa's claimed that by his sword and his armies he had conquered 24 cities, each with its surrounding district with villages and estates. Ibn Amir Hajib in turn reveals that Bali experienced in the Meteor War with an implacable foe who shot well with the bow and arrows, Nashab, their horses and crossbreed Kaddish with slit noses. This may refer to the population occupied during the spaces to the Maninka, or you could say Mandika, even those who came to be known as the Bambara or the Bama, in accord to the severe experiences of such communities prior to the emergence. Now it goes on to say, where is this at that I'm quoting? It says, however, unlike slaving, there could be no corresponding acceleration of the accumulation of gold. Indeed, the sources are both consistent and insisted that Mali was not in control of Afarius zones, which would have been the newly developed fields of Baru and maybe Lobi, along with existing sources of Bambouk. As early as 1730s, 1330s, El-Dawadar records a conversation between Musa and Al-Din, presumably in Cairo, in which the Mansa responds to a query concerning the locations of a place where gold grows. And that's what he says. It is not in the part of our land which belongs to the Muslim, but in the lands that belong to the Christians, Nasara of the Tukwar. Now, let me stop. Let me go source number 50, chapter 6. Y'all rocking with your boy, man. Like that show. Spread some love. All right. So again, like me, Gomez uses the corpus, page number 250, as the source because of what Dawadari claims. As Christianity in West Africa at this time is unverified. Listen to me very closely, ladies and gentlemen, very closely. Listen to what the footnote says. The source says, not me, not Sutek. Listen to the source. As Christianity in West Africa as this time is unverifiable in contrast to ancestral practice, their equation may have been meant as a critique to the former. I'm going to say it one more time because I see Sutek back. It says, as Christianity in West Africa at this time is unverifiable. In contrast to ancestral practice, their equation may have been meant as a critique of the former.
That's a smoking gun.
There we go.
This is why you are told to not go into research with preconceived notions. It's a bias. You immediately got a bias. I mean, any person with any common sense would have seen that sick note. Yeah, man, it's sad. You gotta get your methods up. You wanted it to be Christianity in Africa that bad that you will overlook common errors. That's sad. It was non-existent. He said it was non-existent. That means it was nowhere. They didn't know nothing about Christianity.
Nah, I ain't know nothing about it, bro. But hold on one second. Let me go give you some things. You got it. I went over sick, but I went over sick, and we talked about Taquar, but I'm gonna let you talk about the Congo.
All right. Yeah, so he mentioned Christianity in the Congo to say that, yo, we have Christianity in West Africa. This is the first place you see a kingdom. These people accepted it. But when you look more into the narrative, it wasn't the people that accepted it. It was the royalty that accepted it, or the royal lineage and the royal court that accepted it. You see Alfonso the First of the Congo, his dad was first. He converted, but he didn't never really leave his traditional religion. And he got tired of Christianity. He was like, yo, I'm done with it. And he died. Next up was his son. I can't remember his traditional name, but he got baptized at an early age, and he switched his name to Alfonso. So Alfonso the First accepted Christianity in totality. He embraced it, but them folk were trying to kill him. He was trying to burn down the Nkisi houses, or what would be called in Western civilization the fetish houses. He was trying to burn them down from orders from the Portuguese. And he said, yo, y'all got to send me some guns or something, because when we do this, them folk gonna try to kill us. They already want our neck. If we burn down these Nkisi houses, they definitely gonna be coming for us. So it wasn't the people more so than it was the royalty, the royal court. You know what I'm saying? Also, he said, you don't really see, when you see Christianity in the Congo, you're not seeing slavery. I believe, I don't want to misquote him, but if that is what he said, then that's a lie. Because Alfonso had a deal with the Portuguese. He was supplying them slaves, and it went so far as to write a letter to the king of Portugal to tell them, yo, okay, we got this agreement, but we got certain criteria for who can be enslaved. Is criminals, war captives, prisoners of war, etc. They start taking random people, even people are in his royal court. So he writes back to the king of Portugal like, yo, we gotta figure this out, because y'all taking so many people in my kingdom that it's damn near looking dry. Sentinel Truth. What do you need sources refuting what exactly? Are you talking about the Christianity in the Congo? Because if that's what you're talking about, if you read any other letters, hold on, matter of fact.
I think he referring to a brother that had made a claim. He says there was a brother on the paradigm shift talking about African Christianity by the name of Byron Washington, and he said he was like, what? Soldier Boy voice. He said he needs sources refuting it. Yeah, he talking about. He said I'm talking about refuting Christianity being African. Period. Well, it's not. Look at the cultural. Just put Africa in cultural context. Just stay right there. Africa in cultural context. When you look at Kimoyo, right? African traditions, customs, and if you want to say religion, right? When you look at Kimoyo, what do you see? Ancestral veneration. You see shrines, earth shrines, right? You see sacrifice. You see song and dance. You see masquerades. You see festivals. You see divination. You see you nature worship, right? You see nature worship. You see these ceremonies, right? You see female and male circumcisions. Let's get dirty, right? You see the I'm at 10 things. I'm on the 11th now. You see the use of blood, right? How they viewed energy. They do. You see all of these things. Now let's go look at Christianity. Well, if you go look at African cosmology, it dismisses Christianity because across the continent, African cosmology doesn't even equate to Christianity. So show me the masking ceremonies in Christianity. Show me the female circumcision in Christianity. Show me the ancestral worship, not of Jesus, right? That's just Jesus. But I'm talking about the elders. I'm talking about elders. Do they venerate the Paul and all the other authors of the supposedly Bible? No. Jesus get all the praise and glory.
Ain't no scarification in Christianity.
Man, listen, and I was sitting there. Like, hold on, what they say? Yeah, scarification or tattoos, branding.
Yep.
So we hit them with, right, substantial information right there. And once again, another brother, and remember, Vince Bantu is supposed to be a doctor, a debater, and he don't go look at the footnote. Now I pull from Gomez. We pull from the corpus. I'm gonna go over here and grab this for Tosh. And I'm gonna see if we can find that same thing in the Fatash when they mention Mansa Musa. Chapter 2 in the Fatash starts on page 63. They talking about the Malik Khor, talking about him and his mama. Yep. Talking about the Cadies. God knows best. You know, that's what the Arabs say. They talk about the use of manuscript C. Anyone using manuscript C, there's going to be some faulty information. They talk about the Hajj to Mecca. And see, what's important is when he gets to Mecca, that's when all the rumors begin. That's when all the speculation starts. That's where the myth of al-Bukhari II starts. Y'all heard me say it, the myth of al-Bukhari II. But there's another myth. There's a dagger that, you know what I'm saying, brother T'Challa likes to throw out a lot. If you're familiar with our brother T'Challa, then you know his background and what he's into. But if you ain't got spills of the Massey Volume 3, you tripping. Cause we ain't gonna give you out of the daggers. You're gonna have to go cop that.
Yep, I ain't gotta go get it. Let me throw this link in the chat.
I'm in the Fatash. I ain't found none of this. I ain't found nothing about no Christian. Thus concludes the journey of Malik Khor Mansa Musa. I done went through all of this. Khaldun, manuscript B, manuscript A, You know what I'm saying? We got to mention the Wagadu, Wolof. Look, it says, see, this getting, okay, so here we go. It is said that Mali encompasses a region of 400 towns and that its soil is extremely rich. Among the kingdoms of the sovereigns of the world, only the lands of Syria surpass in beauty. Its inhabitants are rich and living very well suffices. To give some idea of its wealth, to make reference to the gold mines and plantations of the Gura, which can be there and which have no parallel in all of Takur, except in the land of Burgo. So we see Takur show up. So when I go to footnote 36, this is what it says. This refers to Burgo or Burgu, which is situated north of modern-day Benin, and which is widely used by Arab authors to refer to a region that is rich in cola and gold mines, and which is west of Burgo and north of Togo, including a portion of the Gold Coast. These are the inhabitants of Burgo, who are named Berba or Bariba, not Berba, but Berba, B-E-R-B-A, or Bariba, B-A-R-I-B-A. Then it goes on to say the power of the empire extend from Batu to Fenkosu and Kaninga to Singulu. And now, to be more specific, they're going into the Tariq al-Sudan, and they're talking about places that were originally named Jin, who belonged to the tribe of the Wangara. This probably refers to Kaso or Kasu, which is in the northern region of Diamboka, or the Konya Kari, and which is situated in the right bank of Senegal, northeast of Kays. And the Kusi or Kasinke of Kays divided their country into two portions, calling the first Yankuso and the Kusi. And then it says the name Kiange is used as a province encompassing, among other towns, Dumfar and Soso. It is situated close to the halfway point between Wagadu and Beledugu in the northern part of Bamako. But the river dwellers in the Niger also use the name to refer to a cluster of land ruled by the Senike, where many reside to this day. A territory included besides Kaniga is probably called Wagadu, and we just dealing with it. We just dealing with the sources like that, but it don't take me to no dang on Christians. Don't do that. So we got two sources: the source they used, and then another source that I use in a different book to tell people that this is unknown. And then any Berbers that were mentioned at the time are in question when it comes to Mali. So God knows best. We ain't getting nothing out of Fatih, so I'm gonna check the Sudan now. There go the book in the chat, y'all gotta get that. Get the book, man. We having a spiritual war right now. We got Christians attacking West Africa. First it was the Hebrews, now it's the Christians. I want y'all to think about that. First it was the Hebrews, now it's the Christians. So I'm in the Tariq al-Sudan. I am about to, well, I'm telling you who I'm looking for right now. Master Musa got a short story in the Sudan. So let me go to page 9 to deal with Sultan Kankan Musa, the Malian rule over the Middle Niger, on number 9. All right. Observation of Sultan Kankan Musa was the first sultan to rule Songhai. Blah, 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 blah. tells a story about his Hajj. Everybody know that. Right after the Hajj, Batuti, al-Batuti, Most High God, mercy on him, said in his travels, when the Sultan Mansa Musa, that is Malik Khor Mansa Musa, made the pilgrimage, he lodged in the village of Burket al-Habash outside of Cairo. Goes on to say something about how he spent the money, then he collected debt, lost his money. Then he said, but it was Siraj al-Din's fate to die that night, and people gossip about this. Okay, this is where he talked about al-Din himself went to collect the debt, accompanied by one of his sons. Okay, so this is basically telling us, the Sudan is basically telling us, and I don't want to put my spin on it, so I'm going to read it to you so you can understand. It says, this is where the Sultan stayed. Being in need of some money, he borrowed it from Siraj al-Din. This is the same person he had the conversation with. It says, the Siraj al-Din himself went to collect the debt accompanied by one of his sons. Upon reaching Timbuktu, they were offered hospitality. But it was Siraj al-Din's fate to die that night. And this is where they come up with that whole story to kill the dude, right? To feed him something. And then the dude talk about him and his son ate the same food. Y'all don't know about that. But this doesn't talk about him telling al-Din that anything about a place where gold was so fruitful in the land of Taquar. The Sudan doesn't mention that at all. The Sudan is more focused on the plot against Siraj al-Din. Said his son went on to Mali to collect the debt and return to the Egyptian domains. In the same work, Batuta also said Timbuktu, the tomb of Ishak, who was outstanding Grenadian poet known in his homeland as Al-Tuwan, the small casserole. This is also the tomb of aforementioned Siraj al-Din. So we can go into Batuta's work, which is traveled, and Batuta don't even get into no god dang it Christians, or no mention of a Jew or a Christian referring to King Malik Khor Mansa Musa. Chapter 4 deal with Mali and his provinces, but they're giving reverence to that Muhammad dude there. So again, we only have one account. We have one claim coming from all the people who actually had bear witness to Musa, but al-Dawadari is the only one making the claim that his informant told him that Musa told him that in the Tuquar is where they had a gold, and they were running things by Christians. But like I said, when we check the footnotes, which is what the Hebrews don't do, or the Christians now, checking the footnotes to verify or substantiate that claim, because they got a footnote in there for you to go look at the footnote to get the specifics, where they can elaborate on it in the footnote. The footnotes say unverifiable. It's questionable that Christians was there at this time. That is very highly questionable. It's unverifiable. So like I said earlier, we don't know how Dr. Vince Bantu or Adam the Gamer, the Apologist Christian, come to the conclusion that Christianity was in West Africa in 1324 or so forth. That was just disingenuous. Then he skipped the timeline and went to the Congo in the 1500s.
Bad research, man. Bad. If Christians was in that area, don't you think the Muslims would have been speaking heavily on that? They would have been talking about all the taxes that they made them pay and all that, bro. We don't see none of that.
Nope. We don't get the tax plan till later. They don't collect that tax till later. So how you gonna be in the land of the Muslims, right? How you gonna be in their land and you ain't paying that tax?
Or converting.
Yep. You wasn't in the land free.
Yeah, nah, it wasn't no free rides. Muslims weren't giving out no free rides, bro. You either get down or lay down. Or if you was a people of the book, which would include Christians and Jews, then you would have been paying that jizya tax. They don't speak on none of that. Like, you only got that one reference. They would have been heavily speaking on Christians if they was down there.
Man, I don't even want to tell y'all what I'm laughing at right now on the under. But yeah, you're right. It all comes back down to research methodologies and stuff.
Yeah, and they thought they had that smoking gun. You disregarded the sick note. You disregarded trying to gather or cross reference and see how many other scholars or historians of the time speaking on Christians. You failed to go and look at who your source was coming from, who they was quoting. You failed to do all of that. You just saying Christian festival or whatever he said, and you took it and ran with it. Like that's bad.
Yeah, man.
Stay out of West Africa, bro. I be telling them all the time, just stay out of West Africa. You won't have to deal with this.
We keep telling them that, man. They ain't listening. Khaldun don't mention it. And Khaldun was straightforward with how they dealt with people. Khaldun is the reason why we know Muslims was illiterate. They couldn't keep up with their own taxes and how they ran their businesses. They had to have Jews come in and do things. This is also how we know that they had dealing with the Quran. Jews wrote the Quran. Because we get that from Khaldun, a Muslim. Taqwar So listen, after the fall of Taqwar, its name was employed by Arab historians as a synonym for West Africa. In the Middle East, West Africans are still referred to as Taqwar to this day. So that whole name of Taqwar ain't even indigenous.
Damn.
The name itself is not indigenous. So this is heavily influenced by Arabs.
Exactly.
And we only have one Arab source who makes the claim that started this whole thing. And these brothers thought, and they did, look, they was like, look, he's saying it right here in the corpus. It's a belief. A belief that y'all hold to. A belief that you and the Hebrews are fighting for. Because the Hebrews are fighting for it to mean Jews, and y'all fighting for it to mean Christians. And the sources is saying it's unverifiable, especially for Christianity to be in West Africa at that time. Because they know when the coming of Christianity, when Christianity actually crept into West Africa, it was in the hands of the Portuguese.
Yeah, because that's a religion that's like totally foreign. You will have to show how they came in, even if it was the case. Well, we have more sources that's mentioning Christians in these lands, like you would have to show where they came from. Like, how did they get there? Christians don't just pop out of nowhere.
Oh,
Like when we look at the Congo, go back to the Congo. When we look at the Congo, we know how it got there. We know how this uh, Congo or Christian Empire of the Congo became Christian. We know that. So you would have to show where this Christianity or where this Christian influence came from.
mm-hmm. Craziness, man. But man, that's really what we came here to do, man. We came here to scrub the sources, and we didn't deter. We used the corpus. You said this is your source, and you got it from the brother Vince Band too, and we used it. We used the source, and it's sad that we had to do what we just did to piss on your parade. And you went unchecked. They went unchecked for a while too.
Yeah, I noticed. That's crazy. That was my first time hearing it. I ain't never heard him. What? No, actually, I did. I heard him mention that on Sinetta, but he didn't bring it out. I guess they was in the middle of a whole different conversation. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. It is what it is, though.
yeah,
We
fam.
can.
So that's one off your list. If you ever run across Christians saying, "Yo, Christianity was in West Africa before the transatlantic slave trade," they gonna point you to Tuggerah,
Mm,
and you can refer back to this video to peep out the methodology to let them know how flawed theirs is.
pretty much. Yeah, they just made up shit. But we'll be here to correct some more stuff. That's our job. Y'all run as soon as you run on into West Africa, we gonna run you right on out. Don't take it personal. We do this to everybody. We do it to the same people who believe Jesus and Heru is the same. So don't feel special. We beating up everybody, man. But hey, yeah, peep game, man. Go get the book, man. Go get our book. We worked hard on our volume 3, volume 2, volume 1, and every other publication, volume 4. We do this. Volume 4 is being worked on. Show some love, some respect to us. Also go pick up Killmonger's Corner. Get that work, man. Share this show with your family members and friends. Your Christian family members and friends. For anyone under the impression, Kofi claimed that he was gonna catch the replay, but he was all up in the chat about an hour ago. And we appreciate everybody hanging in with us for the night. But yeah, man, I really ain't got nothing else to take. Unless you got something, unless we want to come back and get into Queen and Zinga. But I do want to mention something though. Africans did do this. Now I will say Africans did this. I had a video with this. Africans Africanized Christianity and Judaism. That is something that Africans did. Once conversion and colonialism set place and missionary work began from Arab missionaries to Christian missionaries, European missionaries, when they came in and was forced converting and trying to sell Jesus to everybody, all Africans did was try to Africanize Abrahamic religions and faiths, and it's part of the reasons and the troubles that we have today.
Mm-hmm.
That Africanization of Abrahamic faith is the reason why we have so much issues today, complications. But yeah, man, so, if Sutek ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing, man, we can roll out. You know what I'm saying? Let me know if you got something, bro.
Nah, I don't got nothing. Shit, I want to be able to keep this video not too long anyway, so motherfuckers can go back and reference it without having to watch 2-3 hour video. So yeah,
Gotcha.
we can cut it out.
All right, so on that note again, man, make sure you like, share, subscribe to the Masa Warrior Clan, the Kofi Paisai research team, and then also pick up Kofi's latest book, A Beautiful Lessons of Kimoyo by Kofi Paisai. You can get that. Let me drop that link in the thing for you too. If you're writing a book, need graphic designs, book covers, posters, whatever you need, same tree, different branch. It's in the chat. Holler at us. And on that note, y'all already know.